Welcome to the Opportunity Zones podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Atkinson, joining you on site at the IMN Real Estate Family Office Summit here in beautiful Dana Point, California. And I'm joined today by my good OZ friend, managing partner at CRE Development Capital, Mr. Lawrence Jatsek. Lawrence, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Jimmy.
Good.
It's great to see you. It's been a while.
Great to see you as well. Yeah, we ran into each other at the Cleveland Browns game at the Novogradac Conference. When was that? Last October?
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't know you were going to be here today, but happy to bump into you. And you were nice enough to come on the podcast with me. So
yeah, it was a great surprise.
It was.
Absolutely.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
So we want to cover a couple things today. One, I think we want to get some project updates from you on how your projects are going. You've got projects in Phoenix and
Las Vegas.
Yep. But before we do that, let's talk about 1031 exchanges versus opportunity zones. It's a topic we've covered on the podcast a couple of times in the past, but you have a very specific case that you wanted to tell me about. And I'm a little bit in the dark here. We haven't really talked about this, so
No.
Go ahead. Tell me what's going on here.
It's been interesting. You know, we've been getting a lot of requests to have 1031 money come into our deals, and if we would accept that. And in particular cases, we can do that. But most of the time, it makes it very difficult to structure a deal, particularly when you have OZ and you have 1031 and you have non-OZ or non-1031 investors. So it can be done, but it's difficult. And so, we just had a case where a very well-known family office is coming into one of our deals. And it was interesting. They wanted to be 1031 money into the deal. And I said, sure, we can do that in this particular deal, but why would you want to do that? And they said, well, because we have this property, we want to roll it, and that's just what we traditionally do. And after learning a little bit more about what they've done in the past, I mean, they didn't even look into OZs. And I said, why not OZ? Why don't you cash out now? And we talked about the examples of, pulling cash off the table now, rolling it into an OZ, paying a small amount of tax if you even have to, and then being able to pull the larger portion of cash out later on. Where 1031, where you're just basically kicking the can down the road forever if you have to. And that just keeps getting bigger, bigger, and bigger. Eventually, if it gets all the way to inheritance time,
right?
Massive tax,
right?
Massive tax. So why not pull out cash now, pay it a little tax, and then be able to have tax-free income or a tax-free gain in 10 years?
Right.
So we had a great conversation with this family, and we come to find out that they didn't understand OZs, but nobody properly educated them on that. And so we brought in one of our OZ attorneys, talked to their family attorney who understood OZs, and between the two attorneys and their CFO and myself, we were able to convince the matriarch to go OZ route. And so now they're coming into actually our fund on an OZ level, and it's going to make the deal so much easier. And when we looked at the returns, instead of them kicking the can down the road where they might get a $10 million gain, that they would actually have to kick down the road again,
right?
Which actually gets even more difficult. Now they're going to have a $10 million gain potentially that's tax-free.
And they get to trigger that gain in 10 years or so, as opposed to kicking it down the can until it passes on to their heirs.
That's right.
After they pass on.
Right. Who knows what the capital gains tax will be in 10 years, 20 years? Who knows what that's going to be?
Well, the other thing is,
risk.
The current administration or maybe a future administration may kneecap the 1031 exchange to the extent where they limit the amount of gain that can actually be written off, right?
That's
for
right.
For that basis step up to heirs upon death.
That's right.
So the future's a little bit less certain there, I would say. The other nice thing about it, and you touched upon this a little bit, is with a 1031 exchange, you have to roll over the principal and the gain, whereas with an OZ fund, you only have to roll over the gain. You can take that principal off the table and then do whatever else you want with it. So it's a little bit more flexible in that regard, less flexible in terms of the geographic restrictions,
right,
and some of the types of projects that you can invest into. The 1031, you can come into a stabilized cash flowing property, right? Mm-hmm. OZ, it's a little bit more speculative. It's more opportunistic because you're looking for ground-up development typically, or a huge redevelopment with a big gain on the back end potentially.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more speculative. And
Yeah.
then maybe one other thing I would throw out there is the 1031. You don't have to be quite as patient with your capital. You don't have to stay in that 1031 deal for for 10 plus years.
That's right.
You can get out after 2 or 3 years if you need to. Whereas with an OZ, you're in it for at least 10 years if you want that full benefit anyway. Any other thoughts there, Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, 1031s have their place.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I use them. I'll do them, and it just has to make sense. But if you're a long-term player, and you're gonna you look to get into real estate and do a long-term hold, then why not go OZ?
Yeah.
Particularly today, who knows how long the whole OZ incentive will be around? But you might as well use it while it's here.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And the 1031's been getting kind of beat up and picked on since the day it was initiated how many years ago? Back in
about almost 100 years ago.
Right.
About 100 years
exactly.
ago. Yeah.
And it's still around. So and it's probably still going to stay around. But like you said, there could be modifications. You never know.
Sure.
There could be modifications to the OZ program.
I think there likely will be modifications.
There will be.
I mean,
we're very, very, we're still in the early stages of OZ,
Absolutely.
and we're learning a lot. I mean, like, the first projects are going to start to show the value of their returns, by when? 2027.
Yeah.
So we still got some time.
28, yeah.
I mean, we're only in 22, so
right.
we got 5 more years to see real results. But I think they're
just for that initial wave.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So long time to still play out here.
It is.
And I think that's also why that particular family office, and this surprises me a little bit, but maybe it shouldn't. There's a lot of high net worth individuals, family offices, even expert CPAs and financial advisors who haven't really cottoned on to opportunity zones yet.
That's right.
Because they're still they're new, they're a little bit exotic, but once you kind of peel back the onion a little bit, you realize, hey, this is actually
That's right.
a potentially really good deal here.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody, right? There
That's
are
right.
certain advantages and disadvantages to opportunity zones, just like there are with 1031s or any other type of tax-advantaged investment product. But I think as time goes on, I'm hopeful that more and more folks, financial advisors, family offices, high net worth investors will realize, hey, opportunity zones are here to stay, and this ain't such a bad deal. It might be, I've called it in the past many times, possibly the greatest tax incentive ever created.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I've said the same thing.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. And and family offices really predominantly and traditionally have been long-term thinkers. They're talking about preservation of wealth and passing that on to generations. I mean, I've been to conferences and sat down with 8th generation family offices. 8th generation. I mean, you don't get that far by not preserving wealth. And if you have new tools to preserve wealth with, create wealth with, and why not use them? So it's really important to be getting educated on this program.
Absolutely is.
And again, sometimes 1031 makes all the sense in the world. But a good point you made earlier, you're pulling cash off the table 10 years from now, whether you're in your 70s, 80s, or 90s as the matriarch or patriarch of the family office, you're going to pass that wealth on. That's generation planning, right? And then you can pull that cash out. You can invest that into other assets. You can put it in venture. You can put it into startups. You can put it into secondaries. Whatever your mantra is at that point in time, as you're building your family's wealth and continuing that. So it's a great tool. We're using it. We're using both. We're using it all. We encourage all the other family offices. We talk to them about it. In fact, I've talked to more family offices that didn't know about opportunity zones and how they work than do. And
which is surprising, but hopefully that trend reverses over the next few years here.
That's exactly
before
right.
it's too late.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've even had conversations with my own CPA. They said, "Oh, you're going to have a tax, implication here." I said, "No, we're not." And here's why.
Yep.
And I had to educate them. And they, to their surprise, like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize this." And you're talking about, full-blown CPAs. They've been in the business for 20, 30 years, and they just haven't gotten educated on it. So Jimmy and OpportunityDB have done an amazing job. That's how I started to learn about opportunity zones, and it's a great place to get your education, to get your tools. Ozworks is another great platform it's a community that's learning from each other.
You just got stuck on a phone call with Chris Cooley for a little while.
I did.
There,
right? And another great person to go to, and Ashley Tyson has just been amazing at helping people and educating people in this space as well. So, I would highly suggest reaching out to these folks if you have any more questions and want to get more advice and get connected with others who know the program really well.
Great plugs.
Yeah,
love that. Thank
you got it, man.
Let's talk about CRE Development Capital a little bit.
Yeah.
You guys have been on my OZ Pitch Day events at OpportunityDB a handful of times.
Yep.
Can you give us some updates, what you guys are working on, projects? There's a luxury hotel in downtown Phoenix, and you're also doing some development in Las Vegas, Nevada.
That's
Maybe
right.
you can give us the update there.
Yeah, so Las Vegas is, it's a traditional multifamily development in Las Vegas, and it's right in the path of growth. And we look for projects that are in a path of growth and regentrification, whether they're in OZs or not. But a lot of them end up being in OZs, particularly these days. And we found a wonderful project. We're closing on that deal, and we're fast forward. We have like I mentioned earlier, a very good, awesome family office that's coming into the deal with us, and they've just been wonderful to work with. And we that's what we like to do, is work with great partners, and we'll bring partners into deals as we need them. Our hotel and condo project in downtown Phoenix, Arizona, just had its press release from the Fairmont, or the Accor Group, for our Fairmont Hotel. So it is a Fairmont Hotel with Fairmont branded condominiums. It's the first and only Category 7 or 5-star, what most people know, in Phoenix, Arizona. And
right downtown.
Right downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, smack dab, right across the street from where the Phoenix Suns play their basketball games, and about 2 blocks.
Close to the ballpark there.
Yeah, from Chase Field,
Yep.
and about 2-3 blocks from where the convention center is. So, it couldn't be better located.
Yep.
And I just found out this morning, actually, just before this podcast recording, that from that press release, we've already had 160 people already lining up to purchase the condos, apparently. So it's crazy.
That's great news.
It's great news. Yeah. So we're really excited. That project is going to be one of the pinnacles of downtown Phoenix.
That's
for
great.
sure. Yeah.
When's the expected opening date?
2025.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you broken ground on that yet?
We will be breaking ground at the end of this year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the IMN conference that we're at here briefly before we wrap things up. There's like 300 or 400 people upstairs. A lot of family offices, a lot of sponsors, vendors. Pretty good crowd, pretty good mix, pretty good panel so far on alternative investing. And I'm speaking on the Qualified Opportunity Zones panel in another couple of hours here, so I'm looking forward to that. What brings you to the conference, Lawrence?
We'd like to network with other family offices, high net worth individuals, and we learn a lot from them, and they learn a lot from us, obviously, as we've stated earlier. And it's really about bringing value to ideas and projects and developing relationships. I mean, you just don't develop a relationship in 5 seconds with a family office or a high net worth individual. You don't throw a deal on the table and say, hey, how does it look? Do you want to invest? They're not going to do it. I wouldn't do it either. And so it's about relationships. And I get to see a lot of the same people. We've become friends with a lot of these individuals and family offices. And we're learning from them, again, like I said, and they're learning from us. And this one is predominantly focused on real estate and alternative assets within the real estate world. Yep. And that's predominantly what we do. And so, when these panels come up, Jimmy's going to provide a lot of expert advice on opportunity zones. And I can guarantee you that probably at least half of these family offices in here aren't really getting their arms around it yet. And the more that these things occur and get in front of these family offices, because they're all here to learn too. They're all here to network. they're all here to find deals and meet people and create relationships. And so this is a great place for it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Hey, before we go, can you tell our listeners and our viewers where they can go to learn more about CRE Development Capital?
Yeah, for sure. Just look us up on the web, www.credevelopmentcapital.com, or shoot us an email at info@credevelopmentcapital.com.
And as always, for our listeners and our viewers out there, I will have show notes for today's episode on the Opportunity Zones database website. You can find those show notes at OpportunityDb.com/podcast. And there you'll find links to all of the resources that Lawrence and I discussed on today's show. And also, please be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or your podcast listening app of choice. Lawrence, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, buddy.
You too,
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.